Well, good morning, Crossroads. My name is Dustin. It's great to be with you this morning. We hope you had a great Christmas. You guys have a good Christmas? Well, good. Hope you had a great time celebrating the birth of Jesus. And listen, before we get going this morning, I just want to acknowledge something that's been incredible that's happened here over the last couple of weeks and months. It's been in process. I just want to take time to celebrate. We're all about celebrating here at Crossroads. And right now, we're going to have a small trophy presentation. Come on out here. My lovely assistant is going to bring the trophy out to me, because I am the fantasy football champion at Crossroads among the staff. Yes, can you all clap for me? Thank you. I did it. I'd like to thank my mom for all you've done for me. Thank you. And for Ryan Stroop for poor managerial decisions in the championship game. So thank you. This trophy is for me. Eventually, it'll say Dustin Wine right on it. Champion. In fact, you guys can call me the champ for the rest of the day. If you want, you could also meet me in the lobby and tell me all the great things you like about me. I would love that. That would be fantastic. Thank you. In fact, listen, this trophy represents, at least in my life, that it's great to be recognized. It's great to receive glory. Everybody likes to win, right? Raise your hand if you prefer to lose. Nobody, right? Right? Everybody likes to win because winners get the glory. Winners get the trophies. Winners get their name on a plaque, right? That's going to live for generations around, right? Winners get everything. And I think I came face to face with this reality as a high school basketball player. And we were in a crosstown rival game against our arch nemesis, and the gym was packed, right? And I hit a game winner to beat the arch nemesis, and the place went crazy, and people were jumping on me. It was like this fantastic. I'm pretty sure I saw two old ladies crying, right? It was a fantastic moment, right? I had everybody captivated. In fact, afterwards, a couple reporters, this is real, a couple reporters met me outside, and they just stuck a mic in my face, which is a dangerous thing, as you'll find out in a few minutes. They asked me, they said, "Tell us what happened." And I said, "Well, I'm the man, and they're the worst," right? That's pretty much the sum of my speech. And I had some great quotes in there about how great we are, how terrible they are. And I knew they were going to publish it the next day. And I was like, yes, we went home and celebrated. And everyone was giving me phone calls, congratulating me, telling me how amazing I was, which was so natural for everybody, right? It was fantastic, right? And I remember waking up and we went out to breakfast and the celebration was continuing. In fact, I looked across the restaurant, and there was a guy reading the newspaper, and he had it wide open, and he flipped over, and I thought, he's reading my quote. I'm a celebrity, right? And then as he closed it, me and him at the same time realized it was my face on the cover of the newspaper. I was like, yes. And he came over to me. I was looking for a pen. I was like, this guy's going to ask for my autograph because, yes, I am a big deal. And he sticks his hand out to shake my hand. And I said, yes, sir, I will autograph. And he's like, well, I just thought you might like to have this. And I was like, oh, well, sure. Yes, I would. I am kind of a big deal, right? And that day was, excuse me, that day was great. We were together, and we went to celebrate again tonight with me and my family. We went to a Mexican restaurant in Don Pablo's. Any Don Pablo's fans in the house? Yeah, they got the long chips, the weird chip shapes. Right? We were celebrating, and we went to the bathroom. Well, not we, just me. It was just me. It was awkward. The whole family went to the bathroom to celebrate. No. Well, let's talk about the bathroom for a second, all right? And you ladies, just bear with me. As you walk into men's room, there's a place called the urinal. All right, and back in those days, they used to put newspapers in the urinal, right? And there's a couple in front of the urinal. And there's a couple rules as you walk into a bathroom and dealing with the urinal. The first rule, all men know, is called the buffer zone rule, right? You have to leave at least one urinal buffer between you and the other person using the urinal. It's just standard. Ladies, ask the guys in your life. They'll tell you all about it. Right, and so I walk in, there's only two, terrible bathroom design, only two urinals. What are we going to do? And I just so happens to notice that there's already one man using one of the urinals, which meant I was out of luck. However, I noticed he is staring straight at today's newspaper, the front page, which has my face on it. And I thought, how great of a moment. I can't deprive this man. By the way, that's the second rule of the urinal, right? You must keep your head forward at all times. Whatever it is, if it's just brick, you stare at the brick. You stare, and so I know this guy had gotten a pretty good look at me because he's just staring at my face the whole time he's in there, right? And so, but I thought, I can't deprive this man of the great experience of peeing next to a celebrity. So I broke the first rule. I ignored the buffer, and I went to the urinal next to him. But then I thought, he's not going to see me because he's obeying the rules, because he's a good person. So I thought, in order to get his attention, I have to break the second rule. And so I was staring directly at him, waiting for him to notice me, right, and see him. So I was like, this is going to be a fantastic moment. And I know he could feel my presence, and he just looked over at me, and he saw my face like, yes, you, my friend, are in luck. You get to pee next to a local celebrity, right? And he had this face, right, and I couldn't interpret it. His face was saying one of two things. His face was either saying, I get to pee next to a celebrity, or it was saying, please, sir, don't hurt me and take all my money. It was saying one of those two things, right? One of those two things. I don't know what happens. The point is this. We all like to get the glory. That newspaper was singing my praises, my family, like all that. Like, it was a great day for Dustin. Everyone was giving me glory, telling me that I did a great job. I had accomplished something. I had succeeded. And even if you don't like to be the center of attention, even if you would hate your face on the front of a newspaper, like, there's part of us that's wired like to want to be appreciated, to want to get credit, to want to receive glory, to want to hoist up a trophy. There's something in us that's wired for that. And not only that, our culture is also wired to give glory to other people. We put on pedestals politicians and athletes and musicians and celebrities. We give, we give people glory all the time. Right? Like, there's something wired in us. In fact, I think we're created with this desire to want glory and also to give glory away. And we've been in a series throughout the Christmas season, and this is the last week in the series called The Wonder of Christmas. And we've just been talking about the idea that the story of Christmas is giving glory to Jesus. It is giving praises and giving credit to Jesus and to what God is doing in our world. And our premise has been simple. It's just this, that we hear this story so often that we're in danger of it losing its actual meaning. Like, we talk about it all the time. Every year we go through multiple weeks of telling the Christmas story, and it can easily become like a routine story you hear. Our challenge has been during this season to try to recapture the wonder that God would leave heaven, would come to earth to show you personally and to show us corporately how much he loves us. That's the wonder of Christmas. We've been looking through the book of Luke and the stories you find there, and today we're just going to transition a little bit into the book of Matthew. And see, as we read Matthew and any of the gospel writers and any of the New Testament writers, really, when they write to you, they're not just trying to tell you a story because it's a fun thing to do. They're telling you a story to prove something. They have like an ulterior motive. They want something from you. And like Matthew is trying to convince you that Jesus isn't just a historical figure. Jesus isn't just a good teacher. Jesus isn't just a guy who we all loved, but Jesus is in fact the Messiah, the Son of God, that humanity has been waiting for and groaning for. In fact, the word Advent simply means anticipating and waiting and expecting this Messiah to come. In every bit of Matthew, in fact, you open Matthew, it's kind of boring, it's just a list of names. He wants you to know that Jesus is the Messiah they talked about in the Old Testament. And he connects it with the Old Testament. The rest of chapter 1, same thing. And we're going to open up chapter 2 today. But this is what Matthew wants you to know, that the wonder of Christmas is that Jesus is the Messiah, the one humanity has been waiting for. And as we read through the beginning of chapter 2, the 12 verses of chapter 2, I just want to challenge you with what your response to that is going to be. Right? As Matthew is giving an account, a story that's trying to tell you that Jesus is the Messiah, it begs from us a response. Like, how are you going to respond to him? I think what Matthew wants from us is this. He wants our response to be worship. He wants our response to be to give glory where it's due, away from ourselves, onto Jesus. And so as we read through this, again, just recognize this. I believe everything in my being that Jesus is here with us this morning, that he is alive, and he wants to talk to you through my words and through your spirit. And I want to invite you to listen to what he might have to say to you through his word we find in Matthew. And as you listen, you're worshiping Jesus. Let's dive in together. Matthew 2, verse 1. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. And you see, we meet two characters at the beginning of this, maybe some of you are familiar with. The first one is King Herod. And if you know anything about King Herod, you know that his entire life, everything he's about, is showing people how great he is. He's always wanting and begging for and taking the glory for himself. In fact, if you walk through Jerusalem and walk through Israel today, you will see many structures with his name on it. Statues in buildings, in cities, Herodium and Masada, all these places are palaces, right, with Herod's name all over the place. He loved to give glory to himself. And he had been on the throne for 40 years, so he was good at keeping the glory for himself. And anytime someone threatened his authority and tried to take that glory from him, he killed them. There are stories about him killing family members and wives, and at the end of this story in Matthew, he slaughters a generation of babies so that he can keep the glory to himself. And then we met, then we met another group of characters, the wise men. And their lives couldn't be anything different than what Herod's is like. Because here we have this idea of what the wise men were, right? 3 guys, and at some point in time they were named. But all we know is that it was a group of men that had 3 gifts that came from a distant land. And some of the assumptions we can make is that if they were rich enough to carry treasure chests across great distances of deserts, they're probably wealthy enough to have a caravan of servants to help them on their journey. And so here, this large caravan of people with camels and other sorts of modes of transportation, or donkeys, or whatever else they're riding in on, and they got servants to set up tents and servants to cook for them, and they've got this big group of people, and they're carrying treasure chests of expensive goods across thousands of miles, across the desert, into a land they're not familiar with, and they come to Jerusalem because they don't know exactly where to go at this point in time. And they go up into the throne room of King Herod, and every step they make is not giving glory to themselves, because they even say the first line when they meet Herod is, "We are here to worship, to give glory to another king." Like their lives are pointing to Jesus, even if they don't know his name. Their lives are pointing to the Messiah, foreigners on a 1,000-mile journey. And here, King Herod, as he's watching this convoy come through Jerusalem, and everyone in Jerusalem's like, "Who are these guys?" And as they come through the city, they get almost an immediate audience with the king, because the king, probably, we're making an assumption here, but the king, every time a caravan comes to the throne room, guess who they're there to give the money to? The king. So Herod's thinking he's about to receive all this glory, all this praise, all these riches for how good of a king he is, all the monuments he's made. So he's sitting on his throne. It's good to be king. They're here for me. Tell me, foreigners, how great I am. And the first words out of their mouth are not, "We're here to worship you, King Herod." But there's another king. And this is a dangerous thing to say to King Herod. He's taking lives away for way less stuff. He says, "We're here to worship someone else. We've been on this long sacrificial journey, and here we are in front of you asking about another king." And so King Herod was deeply disturbed by his run-in with these wise men. And this is what we see in the first few verses of Matthew 2. Is this worship is a lifestyle, and it requires sacrifice. Right? Worship is not like a place you go. It's not a couple songs you sing. And I think in our world, we like to create check boxes and I did worship today, and keep checking those boxes off. Keep listening to your Spotify playlist and your worship music in the car. And those are great things you need to do. Right? But worship isn't just like singing a few songs or attending a church service every couple weeks in a month. Like worship is a part of who you are. It's a lifestyle. Worship is about who is your life giving glory to. And all of us are worshiping something. All of our lives are giving glory to something. All of our lives are singing the praises of something. In fact, Herod, his life, singing the praises of himself. And it's easy for us to look at a guy like King Herod and say, oh, what a terrible person. He's evil. He killed a bunch of babies. And yeah, that's far from any of us, far from me to be like Herod. But the reality is, I think there's a little Herod in each of us. There's a little something in each of us that likes to be on the throne of our own life, that likes to have the authority, that craves the glory, that wants to be the one in charge. And any threat to that, we get rid of it. But there's a little Herod in each of us, right? And there's a guy named Paul. His entire life in the New Testament, his entire life after he had an encounter with Jesus was pointing people to Jesus, right? He had a lifestyle of worship. He was beaten for Jesus. He had thrown in a shipwreck. He had been bitten by snakes. He'd been beaten again and thrown in prison again and shipwrecked again. This guy's life was crazy, all because he wanted to give glory, not to himself, but to Jesus. And everywhere he went, that's what he said. He wouldn't shut up about it. Right? And in prison, he's writing a letter to a church he started in Rome because he wouldn't shut up about it in Rome. So he's sitting in prison. He's writing a letter telling them what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And he says, do you want to know what real worship is? It says, your true and proper worship, it's in Romans 12. It says, your true and proper worship is to offer yourselves, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is holy and pleasing to God. Right? Talks about giving God an aroma that's pleasing to him. Right? He says, what is worship? Worship is sacrifice. It's a 1,000-mile journey into a land you don't know. It's bringing wealthy gifts to someone you can't see. Like worship always requires sacrifice. And it's because worship can't be done as you're sitting on the throne of your life. In order to worship something greater than yourself, you have to step off the throne. You have to have your life pointing to someone else. You have to give glory away. So my question for you this morning is this: who is your life glorifying? What is your day-to-day, your Monday to Saturday lives, your at night when no one's watching, your conversations with your family and your friends? Who is that pointing to? Because a life of worship and the life Jesus invites us to is a life that gives glory. And in fact, I think what we're created for is a life that gives glory, not to ourselves, but to give glory to Jesus. The story keeps going. Herod called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of the religious law and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? In Bethlehem in Judea, they said, for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel. Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too. After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the palace where the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. And here in this scene, we meet another group, another cast of characters that often, as I read this scripture, I pass right over. But there's a group of people living in Herod's palace, the religious leaders. And these guys were famous, not famous, these guys were raised to have a job where they consult Herod on what the Hebrew scriptures say. Because Herod, he wasn't a professional at reading scriptures. He was very familiar with what's happening, but he hired this group of consultants to help him build relationships with the religious communities around him. And so these guys, their whole lives have been dedicated to reading the prophecies and seeing what God was talking about. And reading, they had many of it memorized, and they knew all the laws, and they knew all the prophets, and they knew all the poetry and everything. They had read it over and over again to the point where when Herod asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? They say, Bethlehem in Judea. And then they quote Micah 6:8. Micah 6:8 says this. Any of you can quote Micah 6:8? These guys know it. Good job. These guys know it. Because that's their whole life has been about knowing this stuff. Excuse me. And as they know it, these guys come in and tell them about the Messiah. And they know all the answers. They've read all this stuff. And Herod, even too, he knows what to say. We want to worship him too. And all of them are saying the right things. But none of them leave the palace to go see what they've just been told. And they were told that the Messiah, the one they've been waiting for, the one their hearts have been craving, is 6 miles away. That the God of the universe has showed up 6 miles. The God that they spent their whole life reading about and studying and trying to get to know is 6 miles away from them. And they do nothing but stay in their comfortable lives with their comfortable jobs. It'd be too much of a risk to upset Herod. They don't want to go worship someone else because they know how Herod can be. And so they stay there. And do you see what they miss out on? Like what could have been? If they could have been back by dinner if they just went and checked it out. The God of the universe was 6 miles away. I want to make sure you hear that. And they didn't do anything about it. In fact, the only people in this story to go those 6 miles was the foreigners who had just traveled thousands. And as soon as they hear where it is, they're gone. They said, we have to go see the king. And you notice the people in this story that sacrifice the most, the people who do the most and go the furthest are the only people in this story. They're the ones that leave the comfort zone. They're the only people that experience true joy. This is what we recognize about worship in this moment is this. Worship, it demands action and it results in joy. Right? Worship for us can be kind of a passive thing, right? And we can know like the right things to say, and we come and sit and hear someone like me talk, and we know how to say God bless you, and we know John 3:16, and if you were raised like me, and I grew up in a church that was really good, or a family that really helped me like know about Jesus, but a side effect with that is I was really good at knowing the right thing to say. I was really good at knowing the answers. I heard all the stories. I'd sung all the songs. I knew it. But see, God is interested in more than lip service. Right? Worship isn't just saying a couple of things. Like it demands action. It demands your life. It demands you do something about it. Right? And that's why at Crossroads we talk a lot about serving. We invite you in to serve. And it's not just because we want you and need you. We do. But it's not because we're trying to guilt you into serving. But it's because we truly believe that when you act in a way to serve Jesus, if you try to give glory to Jesus by serving other people, that you will experience a joy that you had no idea existed otherwise. I think a lot of us feel like faith can be kind of empty, and you wonder where the life is in, and you might have these empty kind of rituals, and you just have these things you do. I encourage you, it's like, is your life, is your worship just lip service? Because if it is, I want you to be honest with yourself. If it is, you miss out on the joy and the plan that God has for your life. And at Crossroads, we have so many ways for you to get plugged in and join in and to take action as you worship Jesus. So my question is this, is your worship more than lip service? I'm going to keep reading in the story. It says this, the wise men, they entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. And here, these foreign dignitaries, following a star, when they set out, they didn't really know where to go. They were trusting the star to guide them. And they're finally here. And these guys are important people with lots of money, high positions. Right? And they step off these places of high honor, and they get down and they knock on the door. And Mary and Joseph are now in a house because the rest of the Bethlehem crowd for the census has left, and now they're probably staying in a distant relative of Joseph. And so they open the door looking for Mary and Joseph and the baby, and Mary and Joseph come to the door, and it's just this large caravan of foreigners, and they say, we're here to worship your baby. Can you show us to him? And they walk in the room, and they find baby Jesus, and they bow down at his feet. And they literally lower themselves and they say, Jesus, we've been waiting for you. You're what we've been expecting, and we've come a long way for you, Jesus, and you're worth every step, and we love you, and you're worth it. And they put their hands on the floor and their heads to the ground, and you can imagine the tears in their eyes because they're so thankful and grateful for what they're experiencing in their midst. See, they change even the way they stand. There's something that changes. They take on this position of humility. even though they have high position, even though they have authority, they lower themselves. And they're so swept up in the moment, they almost forgot that there are treasure chests in the caravan. And so they run out to the caravan and they bring in these treasure chests. And now they have another position of generosity. And they've already given so much. They've already come so far. But instead of keeping wealth for themselves, they give it away. And I used to think this story, and I heard it in Sunday school, like these three guys would just like, here's a bar of gold, and here's some dirt we call frankincense, and here's some sticky stuff we give dead people called myrrh. That might have even been backwards. I don't even know, right? Like, here's gifts. But no, I said, these are treasure chests. Like, their servants, like 3 of them or 4 of them are carrying in these treasure chests, and the treasure chests of gold and this expensive perfume and all this stuff that you only give to kings, and they're worshiping Jesus with their gift. It's costly, it's generous, and they take this position of open hands, of giving things away. And this is what we learn from them about worship in this moment, is that worship, it transforms your posture, right? Worship transforms your posture and reconnects you to God. Because after they had lowered themselves and been generous and they stayed for a while, they were so in tune with what God was doing, they heard the voice of God speaking to them and guiding them away from Herod. Because this worship moment had got them so connected to who God is. It's like they were in some sort of relationship together. But see, worship, it transforms your posture. I think many of us long for that kind of connection with God. But it's hard for us. It's not natural for us to change our posture. First, the posture of humility, where it says get yourself off the throne. You put your trophies away. And you lower yourself to lift up someone else. Right? Humility is the posture that says, I don't have it all figured out. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. God, I need help. I can't do it on my own. That's humility. Humility says, I give credit away. I don't hoard it for myself. That could be unnatural for us, for creatures who have something in us that want to take the glory. But if we change your posture, if you take the posture of humility, you can get connected to God. The second posture is that of generosity. See, we are wired to hold with white knuckles what was ours because we earned it and we worked for it. And it's mine, and if we give it away, there might not be enough, and there are legitimate fears. But see, the posture of generosity says, I give away not because I have so much, but because I trust that God is the God who provides for me anyway. And so I give freely. You know, recently at Crossroads, and I'm not trying to take any glory for what's happened, but Crossroads this year, as we started talking about the Wonder series, we said, what would be really cool to help people recapture the wonder of Christmas, right? And we said, what if we were this is Pastor Tim's idea, this is how he works. What if we were just like crazy generous with people, right? What if we just like bought someone a house for 6 months? What if we gave $10,000 away? What if we like gave an entire school like 125 really nice backpacks that cost us money? And what if we helped other people in on it? Like that was our idea. And we did it. Many of you were there, right? I got one clap, that's okay. Yeah, right? And listen, I'm not sure if I should even say this, but we didn't do that because we had all sorts of like money laying around to give away. It's not like, we're buying helicopters and stuff around here. It's like we did it because we're convinced that God calls us to a life of generosity. And we want to inspire our people to live with an open hand life that worships and honors and glorifies Jesus. And there are so many stories we were told about how Jesus was honored in individual moments. Maybe some of you had those experiences. It's because when we change our posture and accept the posture of generosity, we get connected with God. I think God wants to get connected to each of us this morning. But many times, we are not in a place to hear Him. We're not in a place to be connected to Him because we haven't changed our posture. My question this morning for you is, how is your posture today? Are you in a place to get connected to Jesus? We're going to invite our worship team to come down, and these guys are going to worship and sing a song for us. And as we dive into this moment together, my last question for you is this, are you worshiping Jesus with your life? Because what I believe to be true is that Jesus is in fact the Messiah, and that's just not an old title we give him. It's a title that means he's the one our human souls are waiting for. He's what we need. And I believe that the God of the universe is given birth this morning. And he's accessible to you, he's accessible to me, and I think the Spirit of God wants to connect with you. Regardless of what past you have in your life, regardless of what you think disqualifies you from his grace, he is here this morning. I think he wants to invite you into a life that leads to joy through worship. So are you worshiping Jesus with your life? Who is your life giving glory to? Who is your life giving glory to? Where are the trophies in your life? So as these guys prepare to worship, I just want to sing a song. I'm not going to sing a song, thank goodness. That will be bad news for everybody. We're going to pray. I can do that. I want to pray, and I just want to invite you into a moment. We're going to have a moment to sing, and it's worship. It's music worship, and we're giving you a chance to respond to Jesus. And I encourage you to do that, whether that's stand and sit and whatever it is, but read the words. It's a song called Reckless Love. Like how reckless that the God of the universe would come here for you. That's who God is. And so step into the relationship with Jesus this morning. Jesus, thank you that we don't find joy in empty trophies and meaningless accomplishments, God, but joy comes from living a life dedicated to you. In fact, we're created for it. And there's this need in us to give glory away, and we love to kind of hoard that to ourselves. But God, help us this morning to take that step of sacrifice, to step off the throne of our lives, and to invite the real King, the true King, the Messiah, King Jesus, you, into our life this morning. And so God, as we sing about your reckless love, may it not just be words on a screen, but may it be the song of our heart that, God, we are thankful for your love this morning. May we have a posture and an attitude that honors you as we worship together this morning. In your name we pray. Amen.